NASCAR CEO Jim France came very close to entering a Cup car in a race this season. Rockingham Speedway up for sale after a successful return, and increasing horsepower for the Cup Series very much seems like it's going to happen. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. So the biggest NASCAR story this week probably came from The Athletic on Thursday when they said that NASCAR CEO Jim France was set to fund a NASCAR Cup Series entry at Sonoma later this summer. Well, that was until the garage area got word of it and The Athletic started asking questions, and now it seems like those plans are off. For now, we'll wait and see how all that plays out. But the car that he was going to fund, a fourth Spire Motorsports entry. The driver, Jack Aitken, who is his driver in the IMSA series for Action Express Racing, a team that Jim France owns in a series that he owns. Think Penske with Team Penske and IndyCar. That is essentially what's happening over in IMSA. And the garage area, not very happy about that. They would like a separation of church and state. They don't want basically what we've seen happen in IndyCar with Team Penske, where there's a lot of questions surrounding the integrity of that sport at the moment, because it seems like there's a major conflict of interest, and there is. And I think that NASCAR team owners don't want to see that same sort of conflict of interest creep its way into, the top tier stock car racing in this country. So they ask a lot of questions. Now, this isn't the first time we've heard about the France family wanting to field a car in the NASCAR Cup Series. Back during charter negotiations in 2023 and 2024, there was a provision in the charter agreement that would allow the France family to own charters and enter those cars into NASCAR Cup Series races. And teams were like, hey, we are not fans of this at all. It'd be like Roger Goodell owning an NFL team. No, that doesn't seem very fair at all. Or Rob Manfred owning an MLB team, which would never happen because he hates baseball. But think about Bud Selig, right? He owned the Brewers, and then he's like, oh, I'm the commissioner. I'm going to sell the Brewers to my daughter. We still think that you're probably involved in the background here, but it's not like the Brewers went on this crazy run and racked up 7 World Series or anything like that. They're still the Brewers. Sorry to Brewer fans out there. Not like we're doing any better in Cincinnati, but you get the whole gist of it here. So teams clearly not very happy about it. Now, the Athletic article did mention that some people believe that France was doing this to basically be able to show in the lawsuit that it doesn't cost as much to enter these cars as what 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports seemed to think. That basically he was going to do like a dry run, a sample, to be like, here, this is everything that it takes to do with it. Now, I think that might be a little bit conspiratorial. I think that there's probably some tinfoil hat situation going on there. I think some information was potentially being fed that, came from a party that, it doesn't want to work in the same interest of NASCAR here. So I would tread lightly with that one. But it is something that I think definitely deserves a deeper look. And I do believe that there should probably be a separation of church and state here. I think you should have to pick a side. You either are a competitor, you field teams and you want to win races, or you own everything and you enjoy that aspect of it, which is, owning the series that everyone competes in. I get it, right? Everybody's like, oh, Jim France is a racer. And he is a racer. He absolutely is. I just think that the conflict of interest just isn't worth the increased scrutiny and everything else that comes along with it. I think that you need to keep those two things separated. Jim France, lovely man. Met him in Chicago last year. Could not have been a nicer guy. I think you just got to pick the side in this situation here. And right now, you've got a pretty good thing going, right? The Cup Series is definitely... NASCAR's popularity is on the uptick slowly, but it is on an uptick. I would hate to see some sort of major scandal or something like that derail the positive momentum that they've been building for the last couple of seasons here. So yeah, it's an interesting situation that they find themselves in. It's an interesting predicament. Ultimately, according to the Athletic article, they did approach Hendrick Motorsports about doing it, but obviously Hendrick's tapped out of their 4 cars. So you go over to Mini Hendrick at Spire and enter a 4th car over there. And that's not the first time we've heard about a 4th Spire car either. Before the season started, there were a lot of rumors that we would see a 4th Spire car this year. Just didn't expect it to be funded by Jim France. So you want to be the next Cletus McFarland? Well, boy, do I have an opportunity for you, because after a successful NASCAR return, Rockingham Speedway, it's up for sale. Sorry if you see the camera moving here. Sorry to that one guy that was like, you got to kick the dog out because this is just unprofessional. You should re-record something. The dog's laying right here, and his butt right now is currently hitting the camera. It looks like we're in a bit of an earthquake. Hi, Ripken. Can we calm down for a minute? Yeah, okay. He's a very happy boy. So, Rockingham Speedway up for sale after the return of the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the Cup Series. The price, don't know what that is yet. You're going to have to enter your bid. They hope to have a new owner by July 1st, but you get a pretty good amount of stuff with it. You get the 1 mile famed oval, you get the half-mile mini rock out back, you get a quarter midget track, 250 acres, 25,000 seats, ability to expand to 50,000 seats, new drainage, upgraded parking facility, and a whole bunch of other things that go along with it. Listen, mortgage rates are high, but owning a racetrack might be cooler than owning a home in a suburban neighborhood with an HOA. I'm just saying, if I lived in North Carolina, maybe we're going to put this together. Call up somebody and be like, hey, let's bankroll this. Regardless, if Rockingham wants to get a Cup Series date, it's going to have to sell to one of two groups, right? It's either going to have to sell to Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, SMI, Marcus Smith and his portfolio of racetracks, which obviously includes like Charlotte, Atlanta, Texas, Bristol, Sonoma, and others, or it's going to have to sell to ISC, which is NASCAR's track division, which owns Daytona, Talladega, Martinsville, Richmond, and other racetracks as well. They're the two big players. They take up majority of the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. And to get on the Cup Series schedule, you're probably going to have to be owned by one of those two organizations. Right now, you got like Pocono and Indianapolis as independent owners, and they're very few and far between. Mexico City is another one. Obviously, COTA is rented out to SMI, but it's not owned by SMI. So there's a, few out there that have been able to make it happen, but realistically, to get on the Cup schedule, it's going to have to be owned by one of those two tracks, and then one of those two ownership groups, rather, and then one of those two groups is going to have to move a date from one of their current NASCAR Cup Series dates over to that, unless, of course, it gets like an All-Star or a Clash or something like that. But it is an interesting possibility that you could own a racetrack, a piece of NASCAR history, a place where the Cup Series hasn't raced since 2004, but a place that does have a ton of memories. You can own the same backstretch where Carl Long flipped down it. I'm just saying, it would be a pretty interesting thing to own in your portfolio. I am actually interested to see who ends up buying this racetrack, because I think that this is maybe flirting with the possibility of not going to SMI or ISC. And you look at some of the other players out there, does it go to a private equity? I would hate to see that happen, right? I would love to see The Rock continue on. And obviously, they've received $12 million in upgrades over the last few years. They've received like $9 million from the state budget, I think, in that same time to do capital improvements to the racetrack. They also have a very rare ability or option to attain one of the North Carolina wagering licenses. So yeah, that is going to be a really profitable thing as well, which kind of ensures the fact that it's going to remain a racetrack because it comes with this really profitable asset, in gambling that comes with it. But who knows who it goes to? Maybe Spire Motorsports. Obviously, they helped promote the NASCAR weekend there last month, back in April. Maybe they end up buying it, right? They've seemingly bought everything else, so why not just buy Rockingham as well? What do we want? More horsepower. When do we want it? Now. Well, it seems like we might actually be getting it. So on the most recent episode of the NASCAR Hauler Talk podcast, I don't have a picket, or the sign or anything on it. I just had the stick. So we're gonna have to deal with that. Everybody use your imagination that there was a sign on there that said, what do we want? More horsepower. When do we want it? Now. I guess it probably would have said more horsepower and then we would have chanted it. Doesn't matter. On the recent episode of the NASCAR Hauler Talk podcast, Mike Ford brought up the topic of increasing horsepower once again, and NASCAR had this conversation with team owners as well as drivers in a recent meeting that they had, and everybody seems open to the idea of increasing to 750 horsepower for short tracks later this year. Now, there was no definitive date given. There was no definitive race, like it's going to happen at this race or on this date, or even a definitive it's going to happen. But it does very much appear that it is trending in that direction. NASCAR has had conversations with engine builders about the feasibility of getting that done this year, and it seems like it is very well possible to get it done. Now, I can already read the comments. I know what they're going to say. 750 is not enough. We need to be at 900. We need to be at 1,000. And now I don't disagree with you. And to Mike Ford's credit, he did mention 900 and 1,000 horsepower on the podcast and said that that number has not come up in conversation, but he said never say never about basically getting there or having that conversation at some point. So For now, 750, we're going to take it, right? Anything to try to make this short track package better. The really soft tire that Goodyear's brought has certainly helped. Now let's increase horsepower by about 80 to 100 horsepower, seemingly, for short tracks. And while we're at it, let's run the short track package at Bristol when we get back there in the fall, but that's a topic for a different day. Hopefully we do get the 750 horsepower, because I really do think it could help out the show, to help out the racing. We need throttle management. We need off throttle time. We need these tires to wear out. We need to be able to burn tires off the corner. And hopefully this helps, do that. I know we've all seen people and engineers and drivers within the industry say that 750 is really not going to make that much of a difference. If you're going to want to make a difference, you got to go up to 900. You got to go up to 1,000. And right now for in season, 750 is the most attainable, horsepower goal that they can get to. So I'm willing to take it for now. However, if it does work, then hey, maybe we do explore the idea of going up to like 850, maybe even 900, and see where we get to from there. Because as it currently stands, we don't have that new OEM coming in anytime soon. So like people have been saying for the last decade or so, let's stop hindering our product now for the possibility of somebody coming in years from now, right? Like, let's go ahead and just do the best that we can with what we have currently. And then when somebody else wants to join in, then we have that conversation about potentially reducing horsepower, going to a different engine formula or something like that. We'll wait and see on it. But for now, the increase to 750 does seem like it's going to happen. What track is that going to happen at? Not entirely sure. Would be Richmond could possibly be a pretty good place to test it out at. Doing it before the playoffs seems like a really good idea. Doing it in the playoffs, like for the first time, maybe isn't the best idea that they would have. And I don't think that they would do that. I think NASCAR would absolutely trial this beforehand. And it's not like 750 is a crazy number. This is exactly what the Gen 6 car had at the end of its run as well. So going back to 750 shouldn't be that difficult. Engine builders have said it's not going to be that difficult. So let's get it done. Let's get it 750. Let's see what it does. And if it does really well, then hey, let's take it to road courses. And if it does well there, let's take it to intermediates. And maybe eventually we'll get to 900. Who knows at this point? But the fact that they're talking about it, the fact that everybody's receptive to it is a win for everyone. Now we just need it to happen. So let me know in the comments what you think about Jim France wanting to fund a NASCAR Cup Series entry this year, Rockingham being up for sale, as well as increasing horsepower. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.